When people keep on doing things that they know that it would intentionally inflict hurt, even if they don't beat you physically, that is the first step of emotional abuse, in my opinion. Hey, 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 guys! Welcome back to another episode of 30 Plus Click with Max and Yo Yo. And as always, I'm Max and she is. If you've been with us long enough, you would have heard us say multiple times that we always ask our subscribers, which is you, to send us topics, send us things that you want us to discuss on the channel. And a few weeks ago, I think we discussed a video. I think during the Rebecca Chepchige video, we had someone who left us a comment asking for us to discuss something around emotional abuse in relationships and marriages. Now, I'm going to premise this conversation by saying we're not psychologists, we're not therapists. We're just regular people with a mic. And if anything, I consider myself to be more of a common sense warrior than anything else. And so, whatever we're going to be discussing around emotional abuse in relationship is from the common sense perspective. And if you want us to discuss something in the future, leave it in the comment section. We're reading it and we will for sure have a conversation around it. So now I'm going to put down my mic and bring Yo Yo into it and let her take it away because she's going to open this floor for us.
Okay, Max. And so when it comes to an abusive behavior, it's something that we really don't cover and we don't take sides. And also pushing it further to an emotional abuse, that is so painful. And so when I thought about it, there are different types of abuse. There are some that are physical. I realized that it's much easier to forgive a physical abuse than an emotional abuse, especially when it comes to trading of words. There's a way it just pierces your heart, especially when it's coming from somebody that you really esteem, you hold so dear, you maybe on another level, you love this person so much, and the person end up abusing you emotionally. It's very difficult to let go. Even if the person changes, it's actually still difficult to let go because the healing of the emotions, that wound is so deep and it's very difficult to heal. And so when I think about emotional abuse, I see that it has different stages. Sometimes it can be from a result of tension building. Another time it can also come from an incident or violence. Another time it can come from the reconciliation part. Another bad type of this emotional abuse is the calm emotional abuse, because at that point you're not sure, is this person trying to change, is this person trying to, what is he up to? And the calm emotional abuse is very dangerous because it flips. Sometimes he would say, oh, I am so sorry, I really didn't mean to hurt you. Part of your mind is already rejoicing that, oh, he's apologizing, and the next statement could be, is it not because there's an excuse to that apology? And that's why it flips your emotions. You're not sure where to settle in. Should I forgive this person? Should I move on? Is it going to repeat it? You're not just sure. And that makes emotional healing very difficult. So, emotional abuse, whether in a relationship or in marriage, it's something you need to uncover. Don't cover it, talk about it. And so, to our fans that has left us that comment, we really appreciate you so much for taking the next step and a very bold step to leave that comment for us. We will do as much as best possible we can do on this topic, and we promise you that we'll invite a guest that will talk more about it. People that have gone through emotional abuse and how they manage to heal, and I'm sure you get more insight on that.
Thank you, Yo-Yo, for having this time to bring us into this conversation because I think it's quite impressive how you've premised it. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about classic case of emotional abuse, and some of the things that came to mind this week was when we were watching social media and what unfolded a classic case with Cardi B and her husband Offset. And if you followed this story for many many years, Cardi B was like an up and coming art a musician, and then she got together with this Migos rapper Offset, and then they went on to have a beautiful family with now three beautiful children. But if you've also known anything about this relationship, it's filled with drama upon drama, allegations of cheating and all of that. And you might say, oh, and again, I'm not talking about Cardi B and her husband because of anything that has happened in the past about their relationships. I don't know these people. I don't really care about their lives like that. They're not the subject of my conversation moving forward. However, something occurred this week as we were on social media. There was a new phase of argument that had erupted. The premise of it is what I don't know and don't really care too much about. But there was a statement that her husband Offset made in terms of like, everybody knows that I don't want you no more. You know, you're in fact my baby mama. At the end of the day, I won. And I started to ask myself, what were the steps that got us to this point where both parties, are arguing on social media, and you could actually, with Jesus joy, I'm going to say, utter this statement of like, oh, I won in making you a baby mama. And if you know anything about Black culture or anything to that regard, you know that being a baby mama is one of the slur against Black women. And so him saying, I made you a baby mama, in my opinion, is a sign of emotional abuse. You're inflicting a slur on this person, that a word that you know that no woman wants to be a baby mama. Every woman would at the end of the day want to be a wife. Every woman at the end of the day we want to be a mother. By reducing her just to the state of a baby mama, you're essentially doing to her an emotional abuse. Because you know that that would hurt, that would sting, that would pain. Now, again, I mentioned I don't know these people, I don't know the context of their situation, but just looking at the situation from outside, you know, I'm also thinking about it from a general perspective. We're fortunate to be able to watch these people have their situation unfold in front of us on social media, but I want us to think about yourself, what you're going through. What are some of the things that your partner says that you've probably discussed it with him, and he knows that this is something that you don't like to hear because it stings you, it touches on the point of your ego, or basically of your mental state, that makes you feel bad about yourself, that makes you go into a place. Maybe you are somebody who, is from a divorced home and you're trying your best to keep a two family household, and he keeps doing things, that questions that. Or maybe you're somebody who has gone through some level of abuse and he keeps on bringing those up in one way or the other. Things like that, when people keep on doing things that they know that it would intentionally inflict hurt, even if they don't beat you physically, that is the first step of emotional abuse, in my opinion. And again, I want to say, remember, I premised this by saying I'm not a psychologist, I am not a therapist. I'm none of those things. And honestly, when I started this channel, I did not know that this was the conversation that we will be having on this channel. But I'm a common sense warrior. And common sense tells me that when someone loves you, they will do their best to make you happy rather than do things that inflicts pain on you. So that is one of the one signs of emotional abuse that I have uncovered. And I know I want to bring you back into this conversation at this point as we continue to uncover some of the other signs of emotional abuse. What are some of the other things that people could look out for in a relationship that could signal that, hey, they are treading down a very, very dangerous path here?
Well, some other signs could be when this person is very impatient with you and is always irritated. He wants to talk to you. There is no sign of respect. And maybe it's just yelling or it's just using the kind of certain words that you really don't like. But so beyond the signs of emotional abuse, if you're currently going through emotional abuse and you feel that there is something here in this relationship that we can save, one strategy, like Max has said, common sense, please. And so, like Max has said, we are coming from the side of common sense, and we are not psychologists, and so we're just sharing common sense. Communication is in two ways. So it is so important that you don't assume communication style. You need to also communicate your communication style, and you also need to ask him what his communication style is. Different people love different way how they would love their partner to communicate with them, and how they would love to also communicate with their partner. And so if you've told your partner how you want him to communicate with you, and you've never asked him, what is this communication style, you've not done the job. You're just halfway, you're almost there. So you need to flip that coin. You also need to understand what is his communication style. And that is not the end of that conversation. Then both of you need to agree what is the communication style going forward. It is also important to cite examples. At so and so time, or when we talk about these things, this is how you have communicated to me, and I feel like you're attacking my personality or you're dampening my emotion. If you talk to me in a certain way, I think I would appreciate it. And if your partner cannot, or is still in the process of growth and is not able to talk to you in that certain way, there are different ways to communicate. Make him send text or make her send text. Make him write a letter or an email or do voice notes. So by the time he's doing one voice note 10 times, he realized it will calm down. And so go through that process of growth in terms of communication. Don't assume that partners know how to communicate. Don't assume that they know you, they already understand your communication style. You need to communicate what your communication style is. And then you can go through the communication style, and that would also help you at least uncover if this is his personality or if this is intentional towards you in terms of emotional abuse.
I'm going to now go ahead and piggyback on that conversation in terms of communication. Communication is always, always, always key to a good relationship. Whenever someone asks me, I'm trying to, I'm someone who is still in the dating scene, and whenever someone asks me, what is your what is the one thing that you value most in a relationship, without even missing a beat, the first thing I'm always going to say is good communication. Reason being, good communication avoids misunderstanding. But here's where emotional abuse comes into uh, communication. Imagine that you have communicated as cleanly as possible. You've let him know that this is the things that he does that triggers you, or these are the things that he does that makes you feel a certain kind of way. And frankly, you would appreciate it if he or she don't do this anymore, you know, and then you've accepted the things that he's told you about himself, and he's saying, hey, I also don't like when you do this and this and that and the other. The difference is what you do next. Communication is one thing, but what you do next after that is very, very important. You understand? If someone has communicated, or both of you have sat down to say, this is what I want to do next, this is what I feel, and this is how I, respond, this is how I would like you to communicate with me. And then the person goes willfully out of their way to ignore all the things that you have communicated to them, and then does all the things that you have said that trigger them, you're probably being emotionally abused. Now, I say this because I remember reading an Aita story on Reddit. And the Aita story goes like, the person was wondering if they were the, a-hole for wanting a divorce. Now, this is a very silly situation to most people, but except you were the person, you know, you wouldn't understand where this lady is coming from. She finds it very difficult, right, in opening jars in the home. Her husband, or the man that she's now married to and considering divorcing, he loves to tighten the jars. Now, not just tighten them to the point of like, not like, okay, you are trying to make sure that the thing doesn't spill out, but tighten them in a way that it is so difficult for her to be able to open anything in the fridge without his assistance. And it's not just to the things in the fridge, it is to the things at the top of the shelves. Anything that is a jar, anything that can be opened, he is going to use his strength to tighten it to such a level that she cannot open this. And she's communicated this to him many, many times. Hey, you tightening these jars when I come to cook, it stresses me out because I cannot open a simple jar of tomato. I cannot open a simple jar of this. Like, I can't open this thing. I need your help all the time for simple, simple tasks that I should be able to do by myself. Please stop tightening this jar. And he communicates to her like, oh, he's trying to make sure that the things don't go bad. The first year of their marriage, she understands it's okay. You're everybody's trying to make sure things don't go bad, except every single jar of in the house, every jar jarable is locked tight, and they've had multiple fights about this because she keeps telling him, stop tightening these jars. I cannot open these jars. I need to open these jars to be able to cook. So imagine that way he has something that makes her dependent, consistently dependent on him. It's so simple. Like, it's a jar. Like, it doesn't look like a big deal. But if you imagine that you're the person who is going through this every single day, you don't know the one that you can open now. You go to open the pickle and it's tight. Like, what are we exactly trying to lock here? Like, what's going on? And so he had promised to stop, to stop doing that. And for a time, things will get better and she will be able to open the jar. But after a time, he will things will go back to the way things were. And she says it's a pattern. Every time she complains, it will stop for a time and then things will pick up again. And then this one time, she he's traveling for a conference or whatever, and he's out of state. And she comes in to open the to do a special dish. Again, I assuming these are white people, so I don't really know the ingredient, but like, she's like, this is an ingredient that's at the back of the fridge. Like, it is very, very rare that I use this ingredient. It is very rare for a very specific food. So, like, even if you say, oh, he eats this, eat that, and eat the other, and then covers it, the chances of him eating this were very, very, very slim to none. And so here she comes to open this jar, and would you believe it? It's so tight. She could not open it. She could not complete her cooking. She had to go to the neighbor next door, to ask for help in on tightening the jar. The neighbor comes in and he helps her, like, starts going through, and he's like, why are all the jars so tight? And he helps her um unlock each of the jars with his strength. He's struggling, and if there's one jar that the neighbor is not able to open, he's like, the neighbor's looking at her like, we're going to have to damage this glass, this jar of whatever this is, because I can't open it. I'm going to go to my garage. If you live in the Western world, like, men like to have like a lot of tools in their garage, that they used to do whatever, and he goes to his garage to find a tool that would help him to open this jar. And of course, it gets damaged in the process. And he comes back with the damaged jar and he says, I've heard you and your husband had this argument multiple times, and I don't know why he would need to have all these jars locked so tight to the brim, but I hope you know that this is not a mistake. He was quite intentional. And I don't want to say anything about your marriage, but I hope you know that this says something. And of course, the lady was asking the people of the internet if she was an a-hole for now considering leaving the marriage because she just cannot continue dealing with this shit. Now, I tell this story to say emotional abuse often shows up in the most unsuspecting of ways. You might think it's a jar, but every jar, and after you've have this fight, not once, not twice, not once, not multiple times, and you've clearly communicated to the person, when someone is very unwilling to change, more chances than not is that you're emotionally being abused. So if you're finding yourself in a situation like that, not that I'm accusing your partner or yourself or anything, I hope that you take some time to pause and think it through. And I'm gonna bring back Yo-Yo to give us more signs that maybe as I was talking, something just like light bulb moment right here.
All right. And so let's stay on the side of positivity, and hope that the partner is willing to change. And so, what could be the reconciliation stage of emotional abuse? And so, this is the stage where he acknowledges that he has been abusing you, either physically or emotionally or financially or in any area of emotional abuse. Because one thing I get to understand about emotional abuse is that it is very relative. It's very different for everyone. So what somebody else would enjoy can be an emotional abuse for another person. And so that's why I don't think it has a definition. You define what your abuse is, and you define what your abuse language looks like, and then you talk about it. And so, if this person is already in the stage where he wants to reconcile, he wants to make amends, is asking, what are those things that I have done to you in the past 20 years or in the past 3 months that really hurt your emotions, or that really, let's assume is not aware you're in the process of communication and this pop up. Be open and talk about it. And also, don't just talk about it and let it go. What are the next steps? What is it going to do differently? It is also very important beyond talking, make them write it. Okay, this is what I would do. This is what I'm going to do differently. And so, what is the reconciliation journey? Reconciliation journey is in two ways. It comes from the man or comes from the wife, or it comes from the boy or comes from the girl, or from the man or from the lady. So it has to be two ways. Don't just leave that reconciliation phase to your partner alone. You need to be involved in that reconciliation phase, because for every reconciliation action it implements, what motivates him to keep going is your response. So don't just allow him to go on that journey of reconciliation and you just fold your hands and watch him for 20 years and see whether you're going to. Well, you might not want to open up your heart to embrace this reconciliation journey, but words of maybe a feedback in that journey would also help. Oh, I see that you're really making effort towards ABC. Be specific. So that reinforces that, oh, this thing I'm really doing is not good. So be specific on the reconciliation journey. Also be specific on the ways he abuses you. And so that way he reaffirms that this part I've done in the previous years is not good. And this part I am working. And so if he's doing so well in that reconciliation phase, applaud him, tell him what he's doing well. If he's doing maybe 20% of 80%, talk about the 20% and talk about why it is not 80% and what you would like to see in the journey to make it up to 80% or 100%. You need to communicate in the reconciliation phase. And don't just fold your hands and wait on the finishing line, because there is no finishing line, and see if he's able to walk through that path to the end. It's a journey, it's two ways. He abused you, and also he needs to know whether he's making amends. And so reconciliation journey is not for one partner. Both of you needs to be involved in rebuilding the wall. And it really, really comes with a lot of confidence. It really comes with a lot of forgiveness. Forgiving emotional abuse is very difficult. As Christian, yes, we depend on Christ to help us to forgive. However, the scars are always there. Most times they never go away. But in as much as the scars of this emotional abuse never go away, also open up to a new beginning. And it is that new beginning that will birth another level of relationship, another level of connection in your relationship, Max.
I love that you jumped straight ahead to talking about reconciliation, because you can never ever really go through emotional abuse without that part towards reconciliation. And I know I talked about it a little bit in my last story where they had conversations multiple times about a situation. So I guess the key pointer here is the person willing to change? Now, Yo-Yo just talked about reconciliation, so I'm going to put you on the spot. And I'm going to ask a question that maybe our users or our viewers are probably thinking about at the same time. And I'm going to say, would you consider cheating or financial, hoarding your partner's finances as an emotional abuse?
Yes, they are both emotional abuse. So why should you control his finances? Why should you hide it? Why should you be in control? He has his life. If you guys want to put funds together, that's good. If you want to communicate to the point where you realize that this is one family, we need to make progress, and this is how to make progress, that's fine. But if you just want to receive and collect the money, collect the ATM cards, collect the debit cards, in fact, collect his checkbook as well. In fact, collect his bank and put them inside your handbag, and you are going, you are abusing your partner because he has a life. Yes, I understand that there is one of the partner that is very flippant with money and spends a lot. However, You're also abusing him. He has his life. Why do you want to take his bank?
Um, I really appreciate also the reason why I asked that question is sometimes when people cheat, they tell you, oh, it's just a physical thing. It's not a big deal. It never meant anything to me, or she never meant anything to me, or he never meant anything to me, because women are cheating these days now. So you never know who can be cheating. But the point is that when you cheat or step out of your relationship, it's emotional. Why? Because in a relationship, it's an emotional abuse. In a relationship, you and your partner have invested emotions into this relationship. You're going to say, oh, we're going to build this thing together. Now I understand that they have become different forms of relationship these days that are going different places. Some people say they're doing polyamory and all of that, others, all the new types of amory. Good and fine. But one thing that I understand with all of those amories is that trust and information is at the core of it, right? And so when you go to do things behind your partner's back, you know, it is basically stepping out on the partner. And as opposed, just forgetting how, you know, your situation, thinking about how the knowledge of yourself stepping outside of your partner will make your partner feel. When you think about that and you still go ahead to make that choice, not only have you hurt them physically by potentially endangering their lives from, you know, having multiple sexual partners, you've also hurt them in their emotions, because they're now going to internalize this and think, oh, am I not enough for you? What's going on? What is it about Lady A or Mr. A that I don't have? And so that I really wanted to hammer on this because, and again, for some people, cheating might not be a deal breaker. I understand that. But if cheating is a deal breaker for you and your partner knows that cheating is a deal breaker for you and still goes ahead to cheat, okay, you might want to think about it two times. That's one thing. But again, circumventing back to the place of reconciliation, I don't know about taking back someone who cheats. Again, going back to the situation of Offset and Cardi, you know, she's forgiven him multiple times. She's given him the opportunity to come back. And now we see how it's all playing out on social media. Because when you give a cheating man an opportunity to come back, most likely they've seen it as a pass and they're always going to do it over again. And I know that everybody's situation is different from the other. But if you see cheating, again, I keep emphasizing because I know that not everybody cheating is a deal breaker for them. But if cheating is a deal breaker for you and your partner is well aware of this and still goes ahead to do it, it is a sign of emotional abuse. And if this is something that you're not comfortable with, I would say you have a decision to make. And again, it's not for me to tell you what to do. I've always mentioned we're common sense warriors here. So I'll let your common sense decide for you. And then in terms of finances, for giving us financial situation. The reason why I asked you that question was, I think earlier, maybe a year or two ago, I've heard a story about a couple who had come to Canada from a different country, and essentially, this couple, they were, the man was working, and so was the woman. Um, I think the man was a student, maybe I don't really know, but the situation was the woman was working. This is the point of the story, actually, and the way it was set up in such a way was that every time that the woman was getting paid, it was getting paid into an account that the husband controlled, or that the husband was able to determine how the money was being spent. And so many times she's always picking shifts to earn more money. But when you see this person, for how hard they worked, it just never really reflected in their physical stature. You know, she never looked any better. She never looked clean. If anything, she always looked worse. And I think having a conversation with this person revealed, you know, like, hey, my husband is controlling the money that I earn. You know, he gives me a certain stipend for the house out of my salary, and then everything else he determines, or he takes it for himself and determines what we use it for. Now, I'm not a feminist or anything like that, but I'm not trying to incite you against yours. If it works for you, good and fine. Again, common sense. If you're working and you're saying, hey, I would like to be able to decide how my money is spent, then probably you should be able to decide. Then you should be able to decide how your money is spent. You should be able to have that say. But if you find that you would like to decide how your money is spent and you're unable for whatever reason, I'm going to talk about that common sense again. You need to think about it and have a conversation with your partner. And if you find that you're somebody who is not able to have conversation with your partners about this situation, I think because the reason why I know you talked about reconciliation earlier, the reason why I'm taking the time to still hammer on these things is that for a lot of people, reconciliation might not necessarily be an easy journey, right? So if you're like, for example, you don't know how to address your situation if you're in a financial abuse situation. I'll let common sense do it for you, but it's not right if you think about it. But that is it from us, and let us now go on to discuss that reconciliation that Yo-Yo was talking about. In terms of the next steps, you've spoken to him. He's taking some actions. Things are now going well. How can we consolidate? How can we get to a point where emotional abuse is no longer a thing in our relationships? And I don't mean to put you on this spot, girlie. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And so, when the reconciliation journey, at the point where you are in the process, so it's two ways. Is either you continue that reconciliation journey or you get back into the circle where it becomes so calm. But that calm circle is very tricky, it's very dicey because sometimes the calm circle might be the end product and everything comes back to normal. It becomes the couple or becomes the partner, it becomes the relationship or the marriage that you really love and everything is going well. At some other time, it can flip into being very defensive. Oh, I didn't mean to do it. It was because of. It's always passing the blame for every action, right? And it's also excusing himself. At some point, he will point back the finger and accuse you or accuse somebody, just making excuses just to excuse his action. So that is also a red flag. So the calm stage is very dicey. You need to be very sensitive to know where you are at this stage. Is he pointing fingers? Is he making excuses for his action? Is he telling you the reason why he did this is because of this? This triggered me, and he's not taking responsibilities for his negative actions? Then that is a red flag. You have to go back to the communication stage. Communication is something you do for life. You still need to talk about it. You still need to talk about it, and let's see if he makes excuses or if he's willing to change. Yes, naturally, sometimes people just forget. Sometimes people make excuses, and also know that no one is perfect. In as much as no one is perfect, there should be some signs of growth. And this is where you would also want to bring that factor growth into your relationship. Are you growing? Have you been the same in the last 5 years, or have you been the same in the last 10 or 15 years, or have you been the same in the last 6 months or when you met your partner? What is growth like for you? What is growth like for him? What is growth like for both of you? It is something you need to talk about because in the growth stage, some emotional abuses, actions will be uncovered and will be settled. And so, but if you're just in this stagnant stage and you're not growing, you're not talking about growth, you've been this way, this is how I am, I cannot change. Oh, really? So that means
Omnipotent.
there is a cycle of emotional abuse. So, things to consider: explore a better communication, be patient to understand what is his communication style, express yourself. Another thing to consider is to uncover what growth looks like. So some people want to grow financially, some people want to grow academically. There's one thing they don't consider: growth in their marriage. Growth in your marriage is very important. You need to put that work. You need to talk about what growth looks like for your marriage or for your relationship. That's when you measure progress. That's when you know whether you're just stagnant or you're just, I'm waiting for the Lord's coming so that I can go to heaven. I don't want to offend. There's more to life. You can enjoy your life. So all this, uncover all this with communication. And yeah, will the emotional abuse end? Sometimes it can end when the guy or the woman grows. Will it continue? Sometimes it can continue if you don't nurture it. And what will you do if it continues? That's one. You have to go and seek for counsel to talk about it. Go and visit a marriage counselor or a relationship counselor. And both of you do that work, invest in that, and then talk about it. They would professionally guide you and point you to the right actions. That's my opinion, Max.
Oh, thank you so much. And I love the fact that you talked about counseling, because I was just going to end on the note that for you to have a proper reconciliatory journey or a change in attitude, because essentially what we're advocating for is behavioral change communication, for you to be able to encounter that, you need to be accountable, or you and your partner actually need to be accountable to somebody. If your partner is the kind of person that he's the king in his kingdom, nobody can tell him anything, I fear you may have lost the way. That is my number one thing for you guys, is to be able to have someone that holds you guys accountable. And sometimes, and maybe I'm a little bit of a serious person, but I do like the idea of taking inventory of your situation, your progress, inventory. Like, maybe I'm a serious person, maybe because I'm a corporate girl in real life, so like I want to take inventory, take stock, how have we done well, what are the things that we look forward to, next in our next, maybe next 3 months. What are the things that how have we progressed? Now, for some people, you might be looking and be like, I know you're not married. I'm not, so maybe it might not be a realistic thing. But if you can try and adapt what I'm saying to maybe fit your realistic, your own situation, maybe it might not be an inventory for you. Maybe it might just be a different way that you guys are able to take stock of how much progress you made and what's left to be done. And I think that that will help you appreciate how far you've come and appreciate the journey that is yet ahead. And that is it from us on 30 Plus Click, discussing the subject of emotional abuse. Again, we're not therapists, we are not a psychologist. We are just common sense warriors who happen to buy mic and start a podcast. And I do, and I think that we do such in the knowledge that we want to have conversations that edify, conversations that we know that people want to have, but not necessarily have the space on the internet to have that conversation. So please and please and please, if you find that any of the things that we've said here today makes sense and you really like the kind of content that we are creating, we are working hard to continue to improve our output. As you might have been seeing the trajectory of change over the weeks as we've continued to go in video. It's not easy. We're still learning, but please continue to support us. If you find that there's someone in your contact list that might need to hear what we said here today, please share this contact with them. You just might be helping somebody in their situation. Yo, have the last word and take it away.
Thank you for joining us in another episode, and thank you for sharing our previous videos. And also, thank you for not just listening, for liking, for commenting. We see all this at the back end, and we do not take you for granted. Thank you. We love you so much. And yes, to wish you a beautiful week. Do have a wonderful week, and remember, always talk about things. You get why. Take care and have a wonderful week.
Bye, guys.